Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Gotham Chess Slow Run. In this series, I've gone on an authorized account on chess.com. I started at 400, and I'm going up the rating ladder, explaining every step of the process, the opening, middle game, end game. Every video, I try to play a couple of different openings and teach you different things. And as always, we are right now in that rating range. That will be my second book, How to Win at Chess Next Level. Not the original one, which was supposed to be for beginners and beyond, but for the intermediate player, the rising player, the player that is ready to become an advanced player. And so we will focus on everything. We will focus on everything that's in that book, which is pawn structure, which is piece play, knights, bishops, rooks, queens, attacking, defending, converting, winning positions, and so on, and practical endgames. With that in mind, we are approaching 1200, so it is time to boot up today's games. Last video, I almost lost. I mean, I wouldn't say I almost lost, like, really, but I did have one very difficult game. So e4, I have played all sorts of openings. You have all requested different openings. I will play the Scandinavian defense. Oh, and by the way, I am working on a spreadsheet, which will be live either this episode or the next episode, with all the openings that I have played in the slow run. And I will put it in the description. It is a publicly available spreadsheet. I won in 2 moves. My opponent has resigned the game. My opponent resigned in 1.5 moves. And that, folks, is how you win at chess in just 1 turn. That's crazy, and also a bit disappointing. I don't know why that happened. The only thing that I can think of is that my opponent clicked on my profile and saw that they were playing me. But if you're going to lose, if you feel you're going to lose and you resign in a move because you don't even want to play, well, that doesn't make, because I would have explained things. I mean, I would have at least educated. I think a lot of people would be excited to be featured in the series, but okay, that's tremendously disappointing. I promise that was not a paid actor. I will still try to educate you a little bit. This opening is called the Blackmar-Diemer Gambit. I don't know if my opponent just, like, resigned because they hung this pawn, or they actually play this opening, but this is an opening either after the Scandinavian defense, or this is called a transposition because it can become the same thing. People play like this. It's a center pawn gambit, and the idea is to get black to take the pawn. We can even go here. The idea is to get black to take the pawn, which is the best move if I turn on the engine. And now white actually doesn't have a very easy time regaining this pawn. Like, if white attacks this pawn with the knight and you do this, well, they don't actually have a way to attack the pawn, except with the queen, but that would lose them a second pawn. Now, that is still a gambit, and then what white tries to do is attack the queen, and then try to castle queenside, and have the strong rook, and this could be very dangerous for black. What you would have to do here is try to develop your pieces quickly. If you actually play a few lazy moves, you know, you could end up blundering something on c7. It is, like, totally possible. They could target your knight. This is one of the ways to play, and in general, what I like to do here is bring the light-squared bishop out, bring the pawn out, bring this bishop out, bring this knight here to defend the knight, and black's position is very comfortable. There is another extra gambit, which is the move f3. This is like the bonus Blackmar-Diemer gambit. You actually don't have to take. You could continue to play with bishop to f5. If you do take, this is quite an aggressive opening for white, because white gets the f-file, since there's no f-pawn, and so when white develops, the rook, which will be on this square, let's just say something like this, the rook, which is here, actually is quite annoying. But if you play solidly with black, and then you slowly transfer pieces to the middle, and, you know, you have to stay patient against the Blackmar-Diemer for around 15 moves, I would say, is the magic number, to get all your pieces out, make sure there's no threats anywhere, then you're probably, you know, you're ultimately going to win. But it's a legitimate opening. It's not, you know, it's not totally stupid. It can be a little bit dangerous. Maybe I will play another Scandinavian, and, okay, well, we're not going to, you know, we're not going to get okay, e5. Now, e5's a very different type of move in the Scandinavian, and it is an annoying move, but I will teach you the way I like to play here. So your d and c pawns go together very well because they fight against white putting the connecting pawn in the center, and also your knight should stand behind your c pawn so that together they control the center. If I had just gone knight to c6, a lot of you would have played knight to c6. If I had just gone knight to c6, then... sorry, instead of putting my... Then d4 comes and my knight is pretty useless, whereas in this version, it actually is a little bit more comfortable. Now, c3 actually is the best move, because white is smart enough to connect the pawns anyway. Now, we're still going to develop the knight behind the pawn, and what we are playing here is a Caro-Kann defense, sort of, but it's also a French defense after the move d4, except we never played the move e6. Now, when this knight comes out, I like to pin it immediately, because the idea is that the knight stabilizes the center. And by pressuring it, because now it's not defending the center, because I have this. By pressuring the knight, I will always be threatening to take something here. But there are some tactics. There are some tactics associated with this position. Now here, there are several moves that are acceptable. You can already, I think, take the knight and then take the pawn and win a pawn. I actually think it's already possible. So look, if I take like this, right? Or I could have maybe started with taking the knight. I don't really think it matters. If I took and the queen took, they would lose a defender of the center. So after pawn takes, bishop takes, they might have to take with the pawn. And that's really ugly. That is very, very unfortunate, since, well, castling there is going to be a lot harder now, and you're still going to lose a key defender of your center. This type of setup is so nice, and it's from the advanced Caro-Kann. Now, we'll get into all that after the game. Here, a very comfortable move is pawn to e6, rock solid position, get these two pieces out. This knight, since it can't go to f6 in this structure, likes to go via h6 or e7 to the f5 square, where it puts more pressure. Now, if I just take this right now, and the queen takes, and then I take this, it just looks like I'm winning a pawn, right? It just looks like I'm going to win a pawn. The only thing you need to be careful about in this position is this diagonal. Since you've moved your bishop and your knight away and your pawns, there are weaknesses on this diagonal against your king. That's why the move e6 is such a nice move, or a6. But right now, I'm looking at this, that just looks free to me. This move does not work because I actually take. Now keep in mind, if my knight wasn't there, I would be losing in this position. Like if my knight was there, because what would happen is the bishop would check me and I would have to block with the queen. I have no other legal move, which is a tragedy. In fact, if my opponent goes queen g4 and I go check and take the rook, that would be losing for black. Can you believe it? That would be losing, because bishop b5 would be a crushing move. White might even see that in this position. In this position, white might play like queen g3. Oh, that hangs a queen. That's the only move you shouldn't have played, because that actually hangs the queen. It's almost, oh, and they resigned, but they didn't have to resign. They didn't have to resign. No, you never resign, because no. Oh, that's insanity. Oh, that's just, no, guys, this is such a lesson. It doesn't matter if you see the blunder. You gotta, the person has to play the move. Maybe I would have gone here. Now, look, this is what I said here. If my opponent went, let's say, queen f4, this is so important. If you go knight to c2 and knight takes, you lose the game. You straight up lose the game, because bishop to b5 check. It's completely nuts. You lose the game. And I mean, okay, you don't lose the game. I've been saying you lose the game, but you might still win this position. But you're completely lost. And so the lesson in this type of structure, in all of these positions with e5 and all these pawns and the knight and the bishop, you have to be very careful of the checks here. There are other ways that you could blunder. For example, let me think of a way. There are some positions where you don't develop the knight. You do something like this. Sorry. Obviously, not in that order. Like, let's say knight f3, here, c3, e6. If you don't go knight c6 and you leave the bishop here, check, like this. This is another way to lose a bishop. It's not losing a queen, but it's losing. So when you play this type of pawn structure in the Caro-Kann advanced variation, with c5, which is what I recommend in my Caro-Kann course, on Chessly, on everywhere, like that I have talked about the Caro-Kann in my videos, this diagonal is extremely susceptible to various tactics, and that you have to be careful. Like, in the opening, we are developing our pieces to put pressure. Look at this. I'm already better. Minus 0.3 on my fourth move. just purely based on the structure here being kind of bad. I still think c3 and like this is good, but instead of moving the knight, white should stay flexible like this. And now I have to make a decision. Since I cannot pin, what I would do here is I would play bishop to f5. And you know what a lot of people do? Because they actually, they want the pin so bad. They wait for this and then they go here. This is not the best because you are wasting time. You have played 2 bishop moves, but it's not horrible either, you know? And most people here are not going to take on c5, which is the best move. They're going to play like bishop e2, but this pawn structure is fantastic for black. Look, even this structure where you don't win anything is really excellent because these pawns are weak. Your pawns are solid, but this pawn is not defended by a pawn. A pawn that is not defended by a pawn is a lot weaker than a pawn that is defended by a pawn. Especially when it's in the center. Like, okay, you could say, well, Levy, nobody's guarding this pawn. Yes, I know. And no pawn can guard a pawn on the home rank. But when you push the pawn forward, if no pawn guards it, it's much more susceptible to various tactics. This knight likes to go to the f5 square, bishop e7. If you want to learn to play the Caro-Kann 100% for free, I have videos on it. But also I have Chessly, and on Chessly on my educational platform, you can make a trial account and we don't require a credit card. And I do that because I respect the consumer. So you can sign up, like if you don't want to pay anything just for a week, learn the Caro-Kann course. It's really fun and, you know, practice and so on. And maybe you'll even want to subscribe there. But yeah, you can absolutely try it out. So in this game, I played on this structure. What should have happened in this position is my opponent probably should have taken with the pawn. And then that would have been good for them. Look, here are some ways that like all of this can go terribly wrong. And I did say, how is this an advanced Caro-Kann? Well, look at the difference. This is very important. One last thing before we move on. Caro-Kann defense, d4, d5, e5, c5, right? This is what we are trying to play in the Caro-Kann. When the knight goes to f3, I like to pin it immediately, right? And then I like to play knight c6. The difference is that in the Caro-Kann, you played c6 already, and then you went here and c5. Whereas in the game, this was the position straight away, and if white goes d4 now, it's your move. That's the difference. It's your move, not their move. And so you take. And now they can't connect the pawns, so you immediately attack the queen. Here's a nice way to win a queen. e6, bishop b4. You will win a queen like this. Sometimes people will pin your knight. This is a very reasonable move. I still here recommend, I mean, you can just attack the bishop. And then, where do you get out the rest of your pieces in this type of a pawn structure? Well, this is what you do. Look, you develop your bishop to f5. White plays knight f3. You play e6. Solid. White castles. By the way, there is kind of a free pawn here, but I would be very worried not developing the rest of the pieces. We already know the knight likes to go to e7. And this takes time. This takes a little bit of time. You're going to have to move the knight maybe one more time or move the bishop and move the knight. Play a6 like rook e1. Play a6. So bishop takes, knight takes. Now the queen has to move somewhere. Now you move your bishop out, and now you castle. And after around 10 to 12 moves, all the pieces fit in perfectly like puzzle pieces. And that's the beautiful thing. When they play the advance, it's a little bit harder for you to develop. But if you're good at like these little 2-move maneuvers, oh, your position's just going to be so nice. It's going to be such a nice game for you to play. Yeah, and last but not least, of course, the game after knight c2, I would have taken the queen, but they would have had to play bishop to b5, and I would have had to give my queen away. The best move here for white would have been king to d2, because if you play king to e2, you block the bishop check, and if you play king d1, you blunder that this is a check. And that's very significant. You would have had to find king d2. So 1 out of 3 would have been the right idea. I take, you give check, I go here, you take, and take with either. I like this because even though your king is active, your pawns can come together like this. And black is better here, of course. Black has the advantage. Why do I have the advantage? Well, I'm up a pawn, right? I have an extra pawn. That's important. Why is it -2? No idea. Like, really no idea. I mean, I can try to explain it to you. This king is a little bit more weak than mine, but really it's just a 1-point advantage. But resigning is absurd. Do not resign. Play it out. Yeah. More often than not, you're making a mistake resigning in these positions. Let's start with king's pawn in this one. I'm going to play the advance, and I'm going to see what my opponent does. Do they play c5 or bishop f5? Oh, look at this, a masterclass of the Caro-Kann. Now we are going to play this position. So we know they like knight to c6 and bishop to g4. So let's see. I'm gonna play knight f3. Will my opponent pin me? So far, so good. Now, the best way to actually play this position so that you don't come under all this ridiculous pressure is to take on c5. Because now the onus is on black. The onus is on black to win your pawn back, right? To hit you where it hurts. Now, and black has to spend a little bit of time doing that. Now I'm gonna play this c3 move almost like a trap. Oh, my opponent actually plays perfectly. My opponent is playing perfect. Now, I would like to play queen to a4, but then I know that they're gonna take and damage my pawn. So how am I developing my pieces here? Maybe I play the bishop to b5 because they want this. Maybe I play bishop to e3. How about bishop to e3? Just a nice solid move defending this pawn. Now, they do have the option here to win my pawn, and it looks like they're going for it now. So I don't want to damage my pawns. I'm going to take like this, and they will be winning the pawn back. So thus far, my opponent has played actually quite well. They have they have played quite well, but I'm showing you how to play. You're also getting some good stuff out of this position. Let's put our queen on g3 to target this knight. And now we will develop our bishop, and we will castle. Now, will black go back to the square, or will they blunder bishop to b5? Great. That is excellent. Now we can still play bishop to b5. There's nothing wrong with the move bishop to b5, right? To pin. I'm not looking to take, by the way. Just so very important. I'm not looking to take the bishop. Sorry, take with the bishop. I'm just looking. I needed a square. I could have developed anywhere, really. And I would like to castle. Knight e7. So far, so good. My opponent playing very well. All right. Knight to f5 could be an idea, but I'm defended, so let's just castle. Now, will they play knight to f5? And then I'll have to slide out of the way, right? My queen's hanging, so I should probably defend my bishop. Maybe they're going to take. Now, there is something really tragic that can happen. They can take and hang checkmate. That would be... You know, that's just... You know, you lose chess games for a variety of reasons, right? But one of those reasons is a concept covered in my second book. Now, I don't know if I have a screenshot anywhere here that I can share, but in my second book, there is a term that I called continuity, and I talk about this a lot. Continuity is, what are your pieces seeing after every move, even if they are not moving? How does the board change the continuity of the vision as things are developing on the board? And my opponent there played too fast to realize that when I took, I joined my rook to my queen. I gave my queen a boost, and I threatened the weak square in front of the king. I played a little tricky move. Of course, the natural move is, well, they want to take there, so I take with my queen. That's a very straightforward move. Now, I want to get you a little stronger than that. You know, because here, I saw everything black was trying to do, but I was like, hey, what if I don't defend and I show you pawn takes e3? I need to get you seeing pawn takes e3, both for yourself, but also for the opponent. Because here with black, you're like, oh, I'm just going to win this pawn. But you never scanned the position. There's a queen pointed directly at your king. You have to give it the respect that it deserves. If black were to have just defended the position here with something like queen d7, even though it pins, this would have been an equal game. So it would have just, you know, went on as a normal game of chess. And had I played queen takes e3, it's actually black who has completely equalized. The Caro-Kann is a fantastic opening. And this line of the Caro-Kann is really, really tricky. And I will just show you, like, look at the evaluation throughout the opening. Knight f3, bishop g4, everything that my opponent played was fantastic. They actually played very well. They took... Here, the best line for me is to just ignore the threat on the queen completely. Very instructive. Compare this position with this position. Bishop, and the knight goes back. I never moved my queen. So since I never moved my queen, I'm a move ahead of where I was in the game. That's actually instructive. That is instructive. That while I moved my queen to counter the knight, and it was a very natural move, you're attacking my queen, well, now I'm going to go back and attack your knight. It actually didn't need to happen. I could have ignored it completely, as the knight would need to return to defend the king. Moving the king here would be very stupid, because you would, not because I have a check, because that would just be blocked, but because now now your king's in the middle. Like, how are you going to get your king out of the middle, right? And so the knight would have had to gone back to play defense. That's quite instructive, bishop to b5. That it's not just a matter of like, well, I'm going to just check you, spite check you, but it's actually that you don't have to move the queen at all, and so you would be winning a tempo compared to the game. Now, yeah, this is really brutal, because actually my opponent played fantastic. My opponent, as a 1200 rated player, clearly saw that they they clearly had a lot of experience in this position, and they got a great position from the opening. Like, it was absolutely fantastic position, and then they just hung mate and won, and that's playing too fast and a lack of tactical continuity. Just a lack of it as a skill for now, but that's okay. Skills are meant to be developed. Just because you're bad at something now doesn't mean you're always going to be bad at it. This is one thing that people completely forget about. Now, these games have been a lot faster than I wanted. I was not supposed to win 3 games in a combined, like, how many moves? Like 25 moves or something? Yeah, just tragic. But it's kind of funny that we've had this structure now, back-to-back games. All right, I'm going to play one more game, or maybe 2. I'll play e4 again. Okay, Sicilian. Now, throughout this slow run, I have been playing the classical Sicilian with knight. What am I talking about? No, I haven't. The Alapin, not the classical. We will see how effective the Alapin can be. c3, d4. The best moves are d5 and knight f6, and nobody plays them. Instead, we get a position that looks like this. And now, there is actually a very normal way to win in the Alapin. So d4, take, d5, take, knight f3, bishop g4, bishop e2, bishop f3, queen d4, bishop c6, bc, and we win the queen and black resigns. So let's see if this happens. d5, we would take. Okay, it doesn't happen. Okay, I just said all of that and it doesn't happen. But this is losing for black. This is already a losing position. d5. If knight e5, f4, and we win a knight in 6 moves. The danger of not knowing certain ways to play and then not taking the time in the opening to play them is a huge, huge risk. That's actually a very reasonable move, queen a5. Like, oh, I'm going to lose my knight. I better get a trade, but I just block. I could have blocked with the bishop as well, maybe, but I would have weakened my pawn. And the knight's just trapped. You cannot allow a knight into the center of the board into a web of pawns. You cannot allow it. The knight will be trapped. Do not throw a knight into the center of the board like this. Now I take. Bishop is going to take, and I'm just going to defend my knight. My knight is hanging. I'm going to defend it with the bishop. There's no check. I'm going to go knight f3, bishop, and castle. Those are my next few moves. Black should probably create some threats, like queen to b6. Be very reasonable. I will probably offer a trade of queens, because I'm up a knight. The Alapin is so dangerous in the Sicilian because people just, they don't respect the threat somehow. Like, they play too quickly. They also should not trade. Okay, well, of course I'm going to snap take the bishop. Now, easy moves here. Develop the bishop and castle, right? So we're going to develop the bishop. Okay, let's develop the bishop here. Now, is castling a safe move here? Continuity. Castle, right? It doesn't matter where I put the bishop. c4, d3. Castles. Can you castle? You will never get above 11 or 1200 unless your brain starts to pick up on tactics for the opponent, forcing moves for the opponent. If you castle, your king is there, and there is a bishop here, and it is not protected by anything. And if you castle, queen d4 check wins the bishop. And if you do not stop making these types of blunders, you will never get to your rating goals. So the best move here for me, for example, is maybe queen e2 with 2 ideas. Defend my bishop, and maybe long castle. Now, lesson number 2. What happens if you long castle? Because that was your plan. Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to blunder bishop to g4 immediately. Black is going to play this in 2 seconds. They just... It attacks your queen. It's the most forcing move they have. Please play it. Oh my god. Oh, yeah, but this is what I'm saying. You see, but you see how difficult it is to see this from the other side? To see that, oh, I'm going to have this position and the bishop is going to come here. Well, now I'm going to shut this down forever. Now I'm going to just not let that happen. Of course, I could have moved my rook as well, but this is what's going to get you to 1500. Queen d4 check that was such a difficult move to spot, but you have to scan the forcing moves for the opponent, even if they don't exist yet, even if they could exist. I see the rook going here. I'm going to get out of the way. King b1, very useful move nearly all the time. When a queen is in the middle like this and doesn't have a lot of places to go, I'm always looking for a trap. I'm looking for like a bishop here or a bishop on that square, just making sure it's defended. I have to say, my opponent is playing very well, but I'm really going to try to trap this queen somehow. You know, maybe queen f2, maybe something like this. I also would like to trade the queen. That would actually be my dream situation. So I'm going to go queen f2 and bishop f4, looking to just completely take away all the queen squares. I wonder what the best move is. Maybe it's g5. Okay, they ignore me, but what's worth more than a knight is, in fact, a queen. So bishop f4. The queen's almost trapped. I think it has to go here. And then maybe pawn to g4, and the queen in the center like this, not good. Queen in the center needs like 6 pieces to trap her. A knight just needs a pawn. So this is just over. Because after this, I'm going to go g4, and then black is going to have to sacrifice a second piece to save the queen. And we will be winning. But notice I converted this very cleanly. Also, I think bishop e2 could be possible here. Bishop e2, there is a cool tactic that could save the queen, which I think is knight takes e4. Advanced stuff here, right? Bishop e2, knight takes e4, that queen hangs, my queen hangs. I might play queen to d4 in that position, which would attack the rook, the knight, and the queen would still be under attack. Oof, that is a tough calculation. And then after that, my opponent would play knight takes, knight check, scanning the forcing moves, and then after b takes, queen e2, they would win their bishop because it would be unprotected, but my queen would go threaten the rook in the corner. How about all that? And by the way, that's not even the best move because black would play queen f5 check, attacking my king, and then play queen f6, blocking. How do you calculate all this? Practice. What I just did there, this calculation of whether bishop e2, knight takes e4 works, I think is around 2,000 plus. You would have to correctly calculate all of that. Now, some of you will watch this and say, I'm 1800 and I saw that. Again, you're lying to yourselves, and that's okay. I don't mind when you guys lie to yourselves and say, oh, you shouldn't insult your audience in the comment section. The truth is the details required to correctly calculate bishop to e2 are, they're quite sophisticated. They're really sophisticated. There is so much continuity ongoing with this move. Like the fact that the knight cannot take. Well, it can take. That's very simple, of course. But then, you know, black would play queen f5, and like that's the simplest option. The simplest option is bishop e2, knight takes, and simply to take back. But if you want to calculate bishop e2, knight e4, queen here, check, b takes, queen e2, queen h8, or queen f5, check, or like that's a very different story. So after the game, we will take a look. I spent obviously way too much time, but I do just want to expose you to the fact that there is so much lying under the surface here. I still think g4 is the best move because it's the most forcing. It attacks a queen with a pawn. It doesn't destabilize my position at all. Like knight takes c4 I think is possible, but I just take with the bishop and the queen is still trapped. I don't have to worry about any complications. Whatever black takes with now would be a double attack on the queen, which means that since it's a double attack on the queen would have to take the pawn on the next move. So for example, bishop takes, pawn takes, the knight couldn't take, my rook would be attacking, the queen would take, then I would play rook here, and then the queen is trapped completely. I think the only way to survive is bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, rook here, and using the square of the bishop, which would be gone, to escape. That's sophisticated stuff. If knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes, rook here, the queen is trapped. It has nowhere to go. Even bishop e2 traps the queen in that position because it can't escape. So Will my opponent correctly calculate bishop takes and the escape to the free square? This is continuity at the highest level. Spotting what squares become empty and which diagonals become empty as pieces move around the board. Continuity in the previous game that I showed you, different, right? Not the same, but still, this is what we are trying to level up, spotting the tactical resources for our opponents. Now, my opponent did not spot it. Rook g1 is trapping the queen, and I think bishop e2 also traps the queen. Now, it is better to lose a bishop for the queen than the rook for the queen. Bishop e2, we do a little scan for checks, and I don't see any checks, so bishop e2, yeah. Now, what's funny is in this position, the best move for black is the very funny b takes c3. That's what I think. Because if I take the queen, they can fork me. But it doesn't matter because we're up so much material. I would give up the queen. I would then take the bishop. I would take the rook. Yeah. This shows you how a queen amongst 6 other pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, can't get away. And more than anything, this was an opening disaster. The Alapin Sicilian is tricky because if you don't put any pawns in the center as black, you just, stick to your Sicilian, you just straight up get a losing position. Your knight can get trapped in the center of the board. Here, the best move for black is actually to go back. Literally to just go back to the home square, accept the worst position. I would then develop my knights with more space, my bishop, castle, and I would have a very good game. And that would be, that. Okay, my opponent gives it up like this, and now they take. And now you can take this pawn. I don't want you to be like, well, my king is open. Your king is open, but I would like for you to not evaluate things based on words. Oh, my king is open. Okay, and what if we just put the king over here? Which of these pieces is going to go after my king? And black is going to castle. I'm going to go here and mate. Black is going to castle, thinking that I got to get my rook in the game, and this is just checkmate. It's now checkmate in 2. Actually, in 3, this is the best move. Survive for 1 extra turn. But rook goes here, queen h7, queen h8, f6, queen h7 mate. And I predicted that, obviously, from a mile away, and they resign. Now, we won another game. I guess this will be a 5-game video, because it really wasn't. I won 1 game in 1 move. And so, okay, what was instructive about this game? This position. From the opening, already the move knight c6, black has to play d5. It's 0.4. Already it's 0.4. After g6, it's plus 1.3, 1.4. Right, so the advantage has grown a lot. And the only move is knight b8. The other move is knight b4, which is very tricky. You're like, oh, what an idiot. Queen to d4 hits this and this. Looks like you just win on the spot, except you lose on the spot because not only do you not win a knight or a rook, you straight up lose your queen. And that is continuity. You forget that this square is protected. You just forget. You go queen d4 and you think, bing, 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 I win. Knight c2. So the best move here for white is just to develop and leave the knight exactly where it is. Just develop, and so on. After knight e5, it's plus 3.5. 3.3, because you just play f4. It's important you play f4 and not with the bishop and not with the queen, because if you attack with the queen, you immediately get counterattacked. And then in this position, it's very easy to lose your queen again, to knight f3 check, discovered attack on your queen, and you lose the queen. At least you win 2 pieces. And this is totally not easy. Knight for 2 pieces, queen for 2 pieces like this at the 1100-1200 level, I don't think it's so straightforward. Look, multiple times in this video, we have had opponents fail to the concept of continuity, right? Not realizing where their pieces are in certain situations. Here, I thought it was very instructive. I didn't just go castles. You lose a ton of your advantage if you castle. See, the computer is a scumbag and thinks that even after losing a full bishop, you have a totally winning position. How can you justify this? So how can it possibly be plus 4 here? Because I'll tell you what, at the 1200 level, it's not. It's like plus 0.5. Because what will happen here is white will play rook f3, and then white is going to play like here, and then white is going to trade the queen, and now it's equal. And white is going to trade the queen like this because you're going to say, oh, this queen is so annoying. It's attacking so many things in my position. Those are words. Stop using words. Use Evaluations use logical deductions about what you know about the game of chess. In this position, even if you lose your bishop, apparently, you lose your bishop, black has no development. Black's king is in the center of the board. So if black's king is in the center of the board, the best way to attack is in the center of the board, d6. So if pawn takes, rook takes. If queen takes, even though it's not the best in this position, you can sacrifice the rook and try to put your knight on d5. You can even play e5. And even though you lose 2 pawns, all these open lines against the opponent, like bishop h6, now black can't castle. Now black's king is stranded in the center of the board. Black is going to play something like rook g8, preventing bishop g7. Now you play queen d2, rook, and you just, you open all the lines so you have the bulldozers pointed at the king in the middle of the board. Is that easy to find? Absolutely not. No, I don't think so. You know what is easy to find? Bishop g4. You have to find bishop g4 because the only check you have is queen takes, and this is the second most forcing move that you have. It attacks the maximum value in your opponent's position. You have to at least scan the move. And black would have won a rook for a bishop, but... And hopefully this is teaching you to think in chess. Hopefully all this that I'm teaching you is teaching you to think. Let's get to 1200. e4. Okay, we played Caro-Kann. Let's play our own Sicilian defense. I will also play a dragon with g6. Okay, so if we get scholars mated, I'm gonna do the usual counter with knight e5. Okay, this is also completely fine. Knight c3. Dragon Sicilian is g6, bishop g7. This is what my opponent was trying to play in the last game. Notice how my knight and my pawn see a knight. Just like in the Caro-Kann game, they both fight for the center. Opponent is just developing. I don't really know. Okay, bishop g7. Maybe knight g5 will be played, and then I'll play e6 and win the knight. So you cannot win games this fast. If both sides are playing normal moves, you cannot win games in 5 moves. You just can't. You have to play regular chess. Here's a perfect example. Like, what is there's and what happens when I attack the knight? Like, you have to play principled chess. You move that knight already. There's no reason to move that knight. It doesn't attack anything. And now I can play knight e7 or knight f6. Okay, it's just eating spikes. There's nothing here. And now I play d5 and castle, and black's position is fantastic. This loss of 2 turns helped me get 2 pieces out. I got my pawn to the middle and my knight. I mean, I don't know, like, should I castle? Should I play d5? Okay, I'm going to castle. It's more principled, and my next move is d5. My next move is just d5, and then I'm going to get my light squared bishop out. Now, white is spending all this time thinking, now I think white is even going to take this pawn and help me get my bishop out, which is also bad. Yep. So now we are making a lot of progress in the position. We're taking the center. I think maybe white will go here, targeting my knight, just how normal people play. This would be horrendous. You would block your bishop. Now is where things get a little difficult. Because now, you know, you're going to be in this type of situation where you're thinking, what do I do next? How do I capitalize on my advantage? So I'm going to tell you what I think is the best move. I think the best move to continue to improve your position and punish your opponent's strange play is queen to d6. Because this is an improving move. You clear up space for your rooks after you move your bishop, and this knight is extremely awkward to defend. You either have to move the knight back again or play g3, which would weaken your king. So I'm going to play this because sometimes you guys like when I don't play the best move, and sometimes you don't like when I don't like, whatever. I think many of you would be tempted to chase down the bishop. There's no need for that. If you overcommit this pawn, it's just going to create a hole in the center, but c4 is reasonable. Even d4 is reasonable because by shoving this pawn forward, you really block white's position. Okay, white retreats the knight again. So that knight has now moved 1, 2, 3, 4 of the first 11 turns. And now I would like to move my bishop out. I don't really know. I mean, I think bishop g4 is a reasonable move here because I am threatening to take and open the position. But if my opponent's smart, they're going to move the knight a 5th time. And that'll be that. I'm not going to be able to do what I want there. Good. Now I will put my rooks in the middle. It's good to bring the rook from the outskirts of the board to the center. Everything that I'm doing makes sense, but white, of course, will play the move h3. I cannot fathom that they would do anything else. Is this a good trade? Not like really, but it's not terrible, but it's difficult to come up with anything else to do. I will say in retrospect, I'm really confused what my opponent is thinking about here. I don't like when obvious moves get a lot of time spent on them. That's never a good sign. But another option could have been to move the bishop out here. Okay, now look here. I have this nice little forking idea. I will at least get my bishop back. And I think this will, in many ways, help the position, clear out a little bit of traffic, and potentially set us up for, you know, an easier game down the line. Do I have to take? No, but I think it's pretty straightforward. And now we have a very equal game. See, again, I don't like this. What are we doing? Why are we spending time on these moves? So how do you play a position like this? Like, how? Well, you can continue to stick to good principles, which is, I haven't developed all my pieces, so let's bring our pieces further into the game, like our rook and so on. How else do you play a position like this? You try to play on the pawn structure, and you try to establish good piece placement. So pawns and pieces, chapters 2 and 3 of How to Win at Chess Next Level. In this pawn structure, which is symmetrical, we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. In this pawn structure, we have more space, right? We have taken more space than our opponent. Generally, in the position when you are pointed in a certain direction, you want to advance as much as you can over there. You try to establish like more dominant spatial positioning of all of your pieces, because when your opponent's pieces are pressed backwards and cannot move forward, that's when you can then go hunt them down. You also try to make sure everything is protected, covered, squares, pawns, etc. And last but not least, you try to then find a way to bring in your pieces. Try to find a way to, like maybe establish a knight outpost, which is certainly a thing that is covered in the next book. Bishop B, this is a very curious little move, pinning my pawn. If I play b6, I stop guarding this pawn, but there is a trap. If queen takes, of course, that's continuity. It looks like I've simply blundered a pawn, but rook a8 would pick up the bishop. So I'm almost setting a little trap here, but my opponent is not falling for it. Okay, my opponent plays rook a e1, which could very well be a reasonable move. b5 is also potentially quite reasonable, right? But I'm still kind of like seeing maybe that will be taken over there. I would like to play rook here, but after the trade, I would not be able to play rook over there, as I would only have one rook. So b5 is still reasonable. I would like to maybe get c4 at some point. I don't quite love that my queen is pinned. But as long as you are making a move here that is not a blunder, then it should be okay. And there are many moves. So look, I'm considering the move d4, but I don't want to allow the knight into the game. So how about this move f5? This is a curious move. It's both a good and potentially bad move. I restrict this knight considerably with the move f5. Also, I could maybe play f4, maybe f4, maybe even f3. Out of nowhere comes an attack. But by playing this move, I weakened e6. Right, so my opponent decides to go all the way back. Knight e5 is still a consideration. d4 is still a consideration. b5 is a consideration. Just kind of like taking space from my opponent. I like the move b5 now. Maybe b4. Still looking for c4 ideas. a5, b4. I have a lot of space, right? I have a lot of space. c4 looking quite juicy. If I play the move c4, you know why I like c4 a lot? That pawn. Same side structure like this. You know, even a move like d takes, trading the queen. Look at me targeting that weak pawn on d2, and look at the quality of bishop. Now, actually, I've made a mistake. It just dawned on me. I made a slight mistake. Not a huge mistake. Because after queen takes, there is bishop a3, hitting my rook to the other rook. Will my opponent spot it? Or will they only be tempted to protect this pawn? What do we think? Now, yeah, but you know, it wasn't so clear, to be honest with you. It wasn't so clear. It was a small error, but I think I saw that even in the resulting position, all these pawns would be weak. So this is called a backwards pawn. This pawn structure for white is terrible. It's a terrible structure. Our piece quality is dominant. We have massive pressure on our opponent here. I would like to drive the knight to d3, where I would establish an outpost, a square in the opponent's position from where you just cannot be removed at all. Now, if my opponent goes knight f4, I will then try to trade the bishop for the knight and then establish this absolutely dominating square on the knight outpost on the d3 square. I can also play g5. I don't actually have to trade the knight at all. Knight d3 straight away is also reasonable, but let's play bishop to h6. We're going to take this knight. If g3, I'm going to snap take that knight so the pawns are weak and then play knight d3. And this just shows you positional domination at this level. Establishing a strong pawn structure, pawn chain, space advantage, doubling the rooks. Look at this. This is how to really use your rooks in a way to thrive. This is just not a good move because I would be winning a knight and I would get a bishop for the rook. And so 2 pieces for a rook, 7 times roughly out of 10 is going to be beneficial. I predict rook e1, king f7, g3, attacking the bishop to get rid of it from the defense of the knight, knight f3 check, and I would win the rook. That's what I predict. One of those things is going to happen. I think rook e1, king f7, g3. Okay, g3 straight away is actually also reasonable. This pawn is free. That pawn, that's just a free pawn. And now we will show how to win bishop and knight versus rook, which is also covered in the practical endgames chapter of my next book. And I'm telling you, I have written the holy book for intermediate level chess. There is a section in that chapter on practical endgame conversion. And I show how to win knight and bishop versus rook with just the king. So look, part of being a good player and graduating to the next level is winning games and being able to simplify. I want to give a check. I want to take the rook, and I want to establish a dominant endgame with my knight and bishop advantage. Could you also go here? Absolutely, but let's trade the rook. And let's establish our knight outpost, and look at how we dominate this rook. The rook cannot participate in the game at all because it can't gain access to anything. Now, he's going to try, of course. He's not just going to, let us do whatever we want. Rook d2, rook e2 is the way to go here. That is absolutely how you would try to get into the game. You have to. There's no other way. You could also try to move with your g-pawn or with the king. Now, I'm going to bring my king. King is very important in the endgame. King becomes like a 4-point piece almost in the endgame. I don't have to take. It's better to control central squares. So I'm going to bring my king. Then I'm going to push my pawns. I'm going to bring my king and push my pawns. Now we might get, okay, now I'm going to push my pawns. As long as I am not making a huge weakness, right? We're going to push all of our pawns together. The alternative would be winning this pawn. It's a very weak pawn. You'll notice my knight restricts. My knight is not hopping around like, oh, I can win his rook. No, my knight restricts. We control the game. If you control the position, you will win it. Control, that's very important. He doesn't have a lot of moves. This is his only move, and then he can't even get in. b4 looks very natural here, trying to get a pass pawn. My only concern with the move b4 is, would I be creating too much of a weakness for myself? But let's play b4 and let's try to convert the position. Pawns go together. We could take with the bishop. It is theoretically possible. You could also take with the knight and try to win the pawn. I prefer to keep the pawns together. It's the endgame. Pawns deserve to go together. So now oh, we're already threatening to win. We're actually, this is awesome. We're threatening this move. It doesn't look like we're threatening this move, but we are. If they take the knight, we just push, and they can't stop it. There's these little tricks in endgame sometimes, especially when your pawns are together. If the pawn had gone there and the rook could have gone behind, it would have been equal. They would have just, equal. Would have been winning for white, because they would have taken our pawn. But they can't, so we are threatening c3. If king here, we win a pawn, we win a bunch more pawns, and c3, I think, is just the winning move here. Take here. Only thing you have to look at is a check. On d7, I just move. They're going to think, oh my god, he hung his rook, what an idiot! But the pawn's going to sneak through, so we win. Look at that. That is classy. And that pawn that we just... And that exists sometimes. There are little tactics in these endgames. Otherwise, it would have taken us maybe 20 more moves, which is normal. How does white create counterplay in something like this? Normally, they would try to go for our pawns. They would try to queen their own pawn, but they are too far. They cannot do that. They are too far. They are just too far. And that's it. We will be making a queen and converting. And this, my friends, is how you play with pawns, knights, bishops, rooks, in a middle game, take some space, create a weakness, create an outpost, convert an endgame. Welcome to the 1200 club. This is how you're going to be playing some really serious chess. Okay, I can, of course, go back. I mean, just don't blunder anything stupid, and don't blunder a stalemate. And honestly, with white, I wouldn't even say resign. Don't resign. You can go forward, back. I don't really care. Just avoid a check. There's mates. Queen on f2 would be mate. You can obviously also take a pawn, promote another pawn. That's another easy way to win. No stalemate. No stalemate. I think white will probably resign here. I'm sort of getting a... I don't know how I am so good at predicting play and just decisions by players, but I think it's what contributes to me being a good teacher, because I can understand how people think at this level and at many levels of chess. You know, I kind of get it, and I take pride in that. So look, I think this game was pretty self-explanatory. Honestly, I think the way I explained it step by step in the Sicilian, the dragon, my opponent wasting a little bit of time. The best move in the position here is queen d6. I just booted up the engine, minus 1.4. The next best move is b6, trying to not develop the bishop that way, but develop it here, long-term game. When I went to g4, that was definitely not, you know, rushing in with this trade was not optimal, but actually what was even less optimal was trading the knight for the bishop. It's kind of insane. It's minus 2.5 in this position, purely if black plays f5. Remember how I just won a game with white where my opponent put nothing in the center and I trapped the knight? Well, putting nothing in the center and not having your knight trapped is still bad, because if you notice, white has nothing past the third rank, which means if I play correct coordinated pawn chess with my pawns, obviously, I take away so much movement from white that they really struggle to do anything. Already after f4, I'm threatening to totally shove the knight backwards, shove this backwards, go b5, go a5, pointing in this direction, right? And that's what you have to ask yourself. You got to ask yourself, like, where do my pieces want to go? a6 was a bit slow. This was a good move. You know, I played b6. I set a little trap. This was good. I think my opponent here actually played very reasonably. Bishop a3, rook e1. I went f5, and they went knight e2. And my opponent went bishop e2 and immediately got a bad position. Right, immediately got a bad position because I played this move c4, and it was instructive how I went for the queen trade. They had to spot bishop a3, but what's funny is that even if I go here, here, and I can take with either piece, I actually don't really think it matters, white's position is still very challenging, because I'm targeting two more pawns, and you're going to realize that in the endgame, these pieces are not worth their starting value. A bishop is not worth 3 point whatever. And a rook is not worth 5. That rook is not a 5-point rook. My rook is. This is a 4-point rook, or a 3.5-point rook, you know? So relative value is something I also cover. And yeah, can't wait. I know that this might sound like a long ad read for the book, but I'm trying to stress everything that's in that book with everything that's going to be in the slow run, reinforcing it home time and time again. How to use your pawns more effectively, your knights, your bishops, everything like that. Converting in endgames. This was a very productive episode. I'm very happy with how it turned out. Do let me know if you have any feedback in the comments, and I will see you. And we are 1200 now, so yeah. You know the drill. Get out of here.